All right, Shauna. So welcome to the podcast today. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. And it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for
Yes.
inviting me.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm truly delighted and honored. First, I just want to get it out there. Yes, we are family. Shauna is my first cousin, and I affectionately call you Nikki, but I'm gonna try and call you Shauna on this podcast. But just kind of go into a little bit of your background. Tell us who you are, where you've come from, and
Yep.
just whatever comes to mind.
So, sure. So, I'm Shauna Clark, and I am currently the global and U.S. chair and the head of employment and labor for Norton Fulbright. We are a law firm of more than 30, more than 3,000 lawyers, 5,000 people all in, one of the largest global firms in the world. I grew up in a small town called Plaquemine, Louisiana, back in the late 60s, early 70s. I'm the product of a public school. Yay to all the public schools out there, graduates out there. My mom was a single parent, and we lived in the probably one of the poorest parts of Plaquemine. We were on government assistance, and I just remember always feeling this sense of shame that we were on welfare. But my mom worked. She had a nursery in the house, and she was well known around Plaquemine. She was very, very involved in her church. Her daddy was a preacher. So I grew up with two things, knowing two unwavering facts. One, that it's absolutely essential to have faith in Christ to do anything. I don't care what it is you want to do. And then second, that you have to work hard and the world doesn't owe you anything and you can be a victim. And we talked right before this conversation started about people going through different things, and we all have our personal struggles. We all have different things we have to overcome. And you can just say, woe is me. Why didn't I have, I would be better off if I had all these things that I didn't have growing up, etc. But I was always a good student. I'm a people pleaser, and I've just come to realize that uh, my ministry is gift giving. I've always wanted people to be good with me, so I would do whatever they needed me to do. I would perform, and I hated that, and I struggled with that because people feel like they're getting over on you, etc. But now, though, the Lord's revealed that that's just my ministry. That's who I am, and I embrace that now. But what I'm saying about people pleasing, I always wanted to be the teacher's pet, and I was. I always wanted to get good grades, and I did. I was always at the top of my class, and that meant I had to work hard, right? And so I was motivated back before I really found Christ, and I tell people this all the time, by a vicious combination of pride and spite. Like,
Mm.
for all the people who said, my mama was single parent, daddy wasn't there, we were on welfare, you're not going to be anything, you're not going to amount to anything. So I had to make sure I showed them differently. So I was motivated by pride and spite, that I'm not going to fail because I'm not going to have anybody say, see, I told you so. Of
Mm.
course, now, after I fell in love with Christ, I have a totally different perspective. But that's what drove me for a long time. And Joshua, I'll tell you, the one thing I think when I look back over my career, so graduated from LSU, I went there on full scholarship. I went to Tulane Law School right after undergrad on scholarship. And while I was at Tulane, I interned one summer at what was then called Fulbright and Jaworski, one of the best firms in the country, the largest firm in Texas at the time. I interned my first and second summer, and right after graduation, 24, I was a full-fledged lawyer, and I was working in big law. And it was a very isolating experience. I was the only Black woman there, one of maybe two Black people in the firm. And I gave you a bit of my background to just juxtapose my experience when I joined the firm. So I didn't know any lawyers. I didn't even know any Black lawyers, much less any white lawyers. And I didn't have a corporate experience. Nobody in my house. Again, my mom, um, for the most part, she had a nursery in the house, and then after we went off to school, she started carrying mail. So I didn't have any exposure to corporate America. It was undergrad, law school, and now I'm at this big white firm, and there's nobody that looks like me.
Wow.
And so I thought it was such a sense of isolation. If you've never been the only one or one of few, it's really hard to capture that sense of isolation, marginalization. But I'll tell you, and I prayed for the Lord to take me out of it. I don't want to be here. Now, the same job that I had been praying for, now I'm thinking it's now my Egypt. And I wanted to leave. And I wanted to leave because I wasn't mature enough to know that a mentor or sponsor doesn't have to look like you. And in fact, probably won't. If they're really good and influential, they probably won't look like you. If you get one, awesome. And so it took me 6 or 7 months of just floundering, and the Lord was closing all these doors. I couldn't go to another firm because I hadn't proven I didn't have a track record. So nobody, they were like, look, you just started here. What's wrong with this place? And so then the Lord opened my eyes to see I had the best sponsor anyone could possibly have. I had a 65-year-old Italian-American man who, it was just from the day I stepped in that firm till the day he died, we both would say it was just a God connection. He was, and I don't exaggerate, one of the most powerful partners in the law firm. He was what we call a 1,000-point partner, and he was the head of my group, and he just took me on. And I did what he told me to do. And so, I'll stop and let you ask some questions, because, there is some insight that I'd like to share with some of your listeners and your colleagues about today. Some of my proteges, and they're not my proteges for long, they want me to explain everything I'm asking them to do, the whys, the how. Well, what do you mean? Why me? I don't have time for that, right? I don't. When I was an effective protege, and so I tell people how to be a good, some people call it sponsoree. When Bambays told me, he's like, what are you doing tonight? I'm like, what you telling me to do? We're going to this black tie. I was always, we're at the River Oaks Country Clubs or the Petroleum Club. Not only am I the only Black person there, usually I'm the youngest by 30 years. What I didn't understand what he was doing then was he was preparing me to be in that situation, to thrive in that environment, to be able to walk into these rooms with people I don't know and be able to snap up, start up conversations where they're saying, we want to do this or that. Sean, I'm going to send you business. I didn't know that at the time. I just knew it was another Monday night that he ruined my evening. And I got to go home and get dressed and go out and sit around with these old white people and just listen. And I'll tell you, I started to get, not only am I good at that, I started to enjoy it. Yeah. And I would make connection with these women, and they would later talk to their husbands like, that woman we met, Shauna, do you work with her? And eventually these people would call me to send me work, because that's how it works in the law firm. You're only successful if you bring in business. But at any rate, I didn't ask him, why are you telling me to do this? And so now I tell proteges, if you don't trust that sponsors have your best interests at heart, then don't agree to that relationship, because no one has time to give you a roadmap as to why this is going to benefit you in the long run. I'm living on 30 years now in this game. So I could sit down and take 2 hours to explain, well, Joshua, I'm asking you to join this committee because you're going to be able to make these moves and that moves. And I could do that, but who has time? I have 5 jobs and 4 kids and, so, but I had to get over that sense of if my mentor isn't a Black woman, I'm not going to be successful. Got over that. And then 2, and this is what I want y'all to take away, bloom where you're planted. I didn't like my environment. I didn't like that I was the only Black woman. So you know what I did? I didn't sit around complaining, can't believe I'm the only Black woman. I went out and I hustled Black women. And by year 3, I had recruited to the firm a squad of Black women. Some worked for me in my team, And some just, one was in energy, another was in a different, just doing different. So instead of just sitting there complaining about what I didn't like about my situation, I changed it. Now it sounds overly simplistic, because while they didn't hire me to recruit. Right. I'm still trying cases, everything that they asked me to do. People are throwing, I don't want to do that. That's not, quote, good work. I did whatever I was asked to do, because you don't know, some of the projects that people turn down are the projects the Lord will use to make you shine. For me, it was trials. So I am a third-year lawyer at this point, and I've tried from the beginning to the end this big case. I'm not talking, and I'm not saying, I'm not being disparaging or disdainful of car wreck cases, but I'm not talking about a 1 or 2 day trial, red light, green light, who hit, who ran the red. This was a big, complicated $1 million case, and I'm 26 years old. The partner's sitting there. I'm doing everything. And it was one of the projects somebody didn't want to take on, because they didn't see that turning into something. And so that's where I go back to bloom where you plant it and make the best out of whatever that's given to you. And so I made partner after 8 years, trying cases. I'm working really hard, and I'm going to come back to the working hard part. And then the managing partner asked me to become partner in charge of Houston. And that was our largest office. And this was in 2011. I was pregnant with my 4th child. And I'll tell you, Josh, the year before, before I knew I was pregnant with her, I thought the Lord was calling me to slow down, because I had tried this big case. I was tired. I'd been running around. My husband had become chair of the board of the Urban League Houston. So I thought maybe this was my time to be on the decrease, his time to be on the increase. And so I was like getting comfortable just being a regular lawyer, not doing all these, not making any moves. I'm going to sit down. Laura's like, nope. And so he's like, I want you to become pick of Houston. And it was a very political position. Okay. And I just didn't want it. And I prayed over it. And I went to a preacher, and we sat for an hour. He prayed over me. We talked about it. I just did not want to do it because I was tired. And I didn't feel like dealing with the politics. When it was announced that I was going to take over the head of the office, there were these senior white men on these committees, and they resigned immediately. They're like, I'm not serving on her committees. Not doing it. Wow. I'm like, peace out. Okay. It was like, but the disrespect. Yeah. I'm not going to be on your committee. All right, then. And I had to deal with, I remember one night this partner called me. I'd made a decision and I was launching something, and he called to basically say, who do you think you are? You didn't talk to anybody, ... Now I could have done 2 things. I could have taken that, he's doing that because I'm Black, he's doing that because I'm a woman, and made it more of an issue. Because at the end of the day, it was disrespect. And I don't care whether it's because I'm Black or a woman. It was all of that. It was, you got the job I was in line for. I don't think you're qualified for it. I don't like you. And to boot, you're a Black woman. I didn't sit there and parcel it. It was, I didn't ask your permission because I don't need it. Oh, okay. Because he'd already let me know. And here's the thing: when you're walking with the Lord, what are they going to do? And I was always very respectful. Now, they were very difficult. It was a very difficult transition for me because I still was a practicing lawyer. I still was working really hard. I was still trying cases. And I really took that job seriously, being the face of the firm, doing all of this stuff. And it was really good training. By the time we changed our partnership how we manage the firm from being office, like we don't refer the Houston office, it's not like that anymore. Now it's practice areas. So then in 2014, the new managing partner asked me to take on a promotion to be, instead of a local role, to have a national role, right? To take over my group for the United States.
Wow.
And that's the role I wanted. But by this point though, I was so comfortable in the pick role, because that job had become really easy. I'm like, here we go again. I just want to, but sure enough, so I took on that role, and I had to deal with I had a very difficult partner in New York that he ended up resigning. Folks tease me that I fired him. I didn't, but he crossed me in a big way. And I told him, if you do this thing, it's not going to bode well for you. And he did that thing. Mm. And, he wanted certain things from the firm that I refused to give. And so he left. But that role, this role, then I was asked, we combined with our global firm, Norton, and I was asked to join the global XCOM in 2014. And so that had me going literally all around the world for meetings and all of this. And I really did not enjoy that at all. Because it was very difficult. I have all these kids. Right. People think that going to Europe for a meeting, that sounds all sexy, and it's just, for me, it's not. I would do a drive-by. I would fly out on a Tuesday evening to go to London, get there Wednesday. The meeting would be Thursday, and then I would fly out Thursday night to get back to Houston, and it really was a lot of wear and tear, but it really positioned me well to now take on the global chair role and the chair of the United States. So that's my journey. I mean, it's a lot.
Wow. It's a lot. But, a couple of the points that really was sticking out to me as you were going through your journey is that it sounded like at the beginning, you had to find a way to become comfortable being uncomfortable. And a lot of times people, when they feel that discomfort, they're in a place where, like you said, you were the only one. Mm-hmm. And I'm fortunate enough to have experienced some of that myself, to where I was the only male Black person within an organization. Mm-hmm. And what people don't realize is the opportunity that's before you to be able to, number one, show that, yes, you are capable of doing the work.
Right.
But then also giving them confidence in the fact that people who look like you actually belong in the places that you are in right now.
That's exactly right.
So how did you continue? Because I know you said at first, you kind of wanted to get out of there, but what in you, besides just the closed doors, kept you there?
So I'll tell you, I became a chameleon. The legal profession is not, it's white male dominated. It's better now, but definitely it was when I started in the early 90s. And so what I did was I contorted myself and I adopted a different persona. And this is not what I am advising folks to do. And I speak against this now, because now I'm in a position now to create an environment where, because you're different, you don't have to act like you're the same, that you could be your authentic self, because I trust you don't have to prove you're Black. You don't have to prove to me that you're great. You don't, when you walk in the door, you could be not your true authentic self on a Sunday afternoon at your house, but you could be yourself. But here's what I did. I was surrounded by not just white men, old white men, but very conservative Republicans. And I'm a very liberal. And and this one woman pulled me aside, and she's a client now. She's a general counsel, and I love her, white woman. She said, "Shauna, I love everything about you. You're beautiful, but you're going to have to go to lunch. You're going to have to go to drinks. You're going to have to fit in. That was the best advice I'd ever received. So I went to the lunches. We would listen to Rush Limbaugh on the way to lunch, and I hated it. And I had nothing in common with these people. But here's what I did, and I tell folks this all the time. So I was dating Rick at the time, and we would watch the Rockets. And back then we worked because Rick was working for another firm, and we'd be working. You just worked all the time. And he's on one end of the sofa, I'm on another end of the sofa, and I'm working. He's kind of working, but the game is on. And I remember this one night, I don't even remember the basketball player's name, and Rick was like, Willis don't have no hands. So that was a soundbite. So the next day I went to lunch. Just as I knew, here we are, it's boring. They're gonna start talking first about Rush Limbaugh, and then it's gonna go to whatever. If it's basketball season, it's gonna go to the Rockets. If it's baseball season, it's gonna go to the Astros. Back then, the Oilers were still here. If it's football, it's on. So anyway, I had my soundbite. So I'm waiting with my turkey sandwich, and they start. What about that game last night? So they start. I'm like, Willis don't have no hands. They were like, Shauna, I was thinking the same thing. So from that point, every day for about a couple months, Rick, what's my soundbite?
Mm-hmm.
So I started faking this thing. But here's what I realized in that faking. And you know how people say fake it till you make it. But here's what I realized, that I started looking forward to giving that soundbite. I started looking forward to being, not keeping myself away, but involved. And then I stopped doing that altogether. I started coming up like with, some days I had nothing to say and I didn't say anything, but I was comfortable now, right? It's all about preparation. You know, you walk into a meeting and you're unprepared and you're just uncomfortable the whole meeting just because you're unprepared. But if you are prepared, you are like, I am enjoying every minute of this meeting.
Yes.
That's what it was. I had just taken the time to prepare for this uncomfortable situation. And it is as petty as having a soundbite. And I say that to people now, and I've said it just in so many different contexts, because it goes to the heart of a closed work environment. Because I should not have to, because this one Black woman after came up to me when the general counsel and the board had asked me to speak before Noble was sold to Chevron at their huge global diversity thing. And I was sharing, doing funny, and I was sharing some things. And I shared that, and she's like, she came up very aggressive. She's like, when are they going to do it for us? Maybe not in our lifetime. So stop waiting for that. Because I don't have that sense of, I knew I had to do more to make them comfortable with me. But they didn't really care whether I was comfortable or not.
Right.
They didn't know me enough. All they knew was themselves. So they were thinking, they didn't know I was uncomfortable. They didn't know I despised being around them. I mean, nobody thinks that way. I know for certain. And so from that, Josh, I purposed in my heart that I would not become that which I despised, that I wouldn't have anyone on my team having to prepare just to have lunch with me, that I was going to be interested in them as much as of themselves that they wanted to share. I'm interested in knowing about that. You know what I'm saying? And so, but that's what I did. And the other thing, these things are happening simultaneously. As I demonstrated how good I was at trying cases, that's another thing. When you're good, that confidence just comes. So now they are coming to me. I mean, in the God, I give all praise and glory to God. They're coming to me to say, Shauna, can I talk to you about my voir dire? If you've ever served on the jury, voir dire is when they're picking you and asking you questions, or can you be objective? That's probably the hardest part. People think it's the opening station or cross-examination. That's easy. The hardest part of any trial is voir dire, because you're basically picking, and by the time voir dire is over, most people have already made up their mind. And so, but they'd come to me because I tried this one case, and this judge, I'm 28, this old judge called the head of litigation to say, Frank Jones, I have one of your young lawyers here, and she just conducted the best voir dire I've seen. I didn't know that. I mean, this judge, literally, this old judge who's tried hundreds of cases, called the head of litigation, and he left a message, and Frank had his secretary, because it was secretary, that transcribe it and send it to John Harper, my boss, and left me a note on it. So by this point, though, I'm walking around all like, because I'm good,
Yeah.
right? I became comfortable on the social stuff, but more than that, because I kept at it and I worked really, really hard to be good at what I did, so much so that they were now coming to me, I need a hook. What would you say on this case? And we're like, literally, these guys are 55, I'm 28, but now we're colleagues. And I'll tell you, Josh, from that point to when they all retired, we were colleagues. I was not, they didn't look down like I'm the associate. It was, Shauna could do it, and I did. And people will say this when like, you're just so spoiled. Like those guys let you do whatever you wanted to do, and they did. But I wasn't walking around like, I'm all better. I was getting after it, working my tail off, helping everybody that came in. So when I came in, they were like, we don't have examples. I started creating a binder of motions for summary judgments, motions to dismiss. So when I was recruiting, now I'm an associate myself, but new people will come in, I would say, you're welcome to come into my office at any time. And those books over there are motions. Have at it. Like, so I was changing their whole way of doing. They were like hiding the ball. We don't have examples. How does that make sense? We do the same thing. The law, it's a motion practice. Okay. You don't have them for me. And I didn't think that personally. I'm like, that's fine. But I'm not going to become that which I despise. And I'm not going to I don't deal with hazing. And that's why I'll say this. That's why the Lord has blessed me. I am where I am because my team, it's amazing. And people around the firm, they go so hard for me. We'll put up $5 million, $6 million a year because my team, I can't do that by myself, right? I'm bringing in all these cases. I got these people who love me because they know I love them and they know how much I appreciate it. Who just wants to work as hard as they do? I mean, now they make a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but they know I have their back, right? And again, it goes back to, I don't ever want anybody on my team to feel how I felt when I started. So that's a long way of saying, this is what this is how I did it. You have to find ways to make yourself comfortable, but you have to bloom where you're planted. And it's not just about you, right? Yes, you are showing them, but you're representing for the Joshuas that's coming behind you. Right. I mean, and so that's what I did. And, I'll gnaw my right arm off before I just give up on something. Like, I mean, so
with that being said, was there ever a time that you actually kind of felt like, oh, wow, I might be a little bit above my head? Was there ever a time that you felt that?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, look, if you're good, like every single big position, I'm like, I'm not quite qualified for this. But here's the thing. TD Jakes said, and it struck me, he doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. Yeah. So you go, so just, it goes back to your saying, and Josh, you must have been on my calls, because I've been saying to my proteges around the world, you have to be uncomfortable, comfortable being uncomfortable. But that's just a part of it. That at every next, it wouldn't be the next level if you'd already mastered it, right? I mean, It would just be where you are.
Right.
So yeah, you have that. But my mama used to always say, now, he didn't bring you this far to leave you. And it's like the same thing that got me to this point and made me successful here will make me successful there. My hard work, my dedication, my integrity, my loyalty, my resilience, my perseverance, and most importantly, my faith. That's all. That's what's gotten me here. And that's what's going to take you to the next time. But let me say this though. So, because I don't really believe the fake it till you make it thing. I say that with my sound bites. But one thing I want you to know, and this is what I am very transparent. If I need help, I ask for it.
Wow.
Some people see that as a sign that you're not qualified for the job or you're not ready for the job. That's hubris. That's pride. The Lord will put people around you with more experience in certain areas, even though they can't do your job. They have certain experience that they can help you do your job. And see, once you have demonstrated your worth, your weight, once you have a track record like you have, there is nothing wrong with saying, yeah, I need you to shore me up on this part. And I need you, and this is what I tell my team. It's like, I'm looking for people who are better than me in certain areas.
Mm.
And that there's no weakness in that. I'm looking, Heather Sherritt. Now that I'm in all these roles, I'm writing blogs, but I'm a practicing lawyer, right? I'm still doing all this stuff, but I have to blog on this and that and the other. And so I'm a stream of consciousness. I write an opening statement, I still handwrite it, or I'll type, not on a computer if I have my phone, just so I don't lose thoughts. And I'll send her a stream of consciousness, whatever blog. And I call her, I said, she takes my straw and make it gold. And so she'll take it and she'll just edit it, because she's a beautiful writer, a great editor. Like some people, that's like the people who write Barack Obama's speeches, they're speech writers. They can't be out front. They don't have that skill, that ability to lead the thing, but they could prepare a speech for you.
Mm-hmm.
The person who is doing the thing, leading the thing. But you got to be vulnerable enough to say, okay, I need you to help me in this area. So when you are feeling I'm out of my depth, I'm out of my element, you have to question yourself. Is it just some amorphous feeling? Because you're not ruled by emotion, so you got to just clamp that down. Mm-hmm. But if it's a technical point or aspect of the position or the project that there's someone who's done this before and they could give you some guidance, then I implore all of you, all of the listeners, reach out and say, I need help. Can you give me some guidance? And I'm still doing that on certain things, not work stuff, but sometimes it's even if I'm handling a very difficult case. But I've made my bones. Like I'm not, who I am is not tied up in what I do. So if I say I don't know the answer, and that's the other thing too. If I don't know the answer, I don't know the answer. I'll get it for you though. Like we're in meetings and I have these men who just talk to be talking. It's gone all around. And now everybody's regurgitating what everybody else has said. Shauna, do you have anything to add? No. And I'm just like this. I'm not gonna say the same thing 5 people have already said just to hear myself talk. Like
right.
When I have something to say, they know they can't shut me up. But I don't just speak just to speak. But that's all about being confident that and it's taken, look, I'm saying that here. I'm 51. I've been in this game a long time. I have a lot of scar tissue. It is not easy. Nothing worth having is easy. And but there is so much satisfaction in just doing a good job. And I hope we have a chance. I'm happy to talk. I know we've gone over time, but I'm happy to talk more. But I do want to at some point explore the role that money plays in success, because people get that all mixed up.
So I think we're going to have to do a part 2 for that.
That's what I'm saying. So we have a lot more to talk about, and I've just
we do.
And I'm sorry. I've gone over. I just adore you. Call me and we could talk. We could have different sessions, but I would love to explore with you, because that's a big lesson that I learned some years ago, and I'll just tell you how that unfolded, because you could be driven and say that, how much money I make that dictates how successful I am. And sometimes that's true, but sometimes it's not. And that's what I'm trying to keep my kids from doing, from tying success with money.
Amen. I think that's a perfect way to tease the part 2 of this conversation.